r/ProRevenge. I'm a team builder. A few years ago, I was sitting in a job interview and the hiring manager asked, "What do you consider the greatest accomplishment of your career?" This made me pause as I've been doing the same thing for over 25 years. I let the mists of memory transport me back in time. Dorian, the nurse manager. Kip, the program manager. Dr. Steve, the clinical director. Yeah, I had 3 bosses. I started on the unit as an already seasoned, jaded, registered nurse and soon discovered that most staff who worked there were very, very young and inexperienced. For many, this was their first real job. They assumed all the weird stuff that happened every day was just normal for the workplace. Dorian had decreed that no one was allowed to write incident reports for med errors or safety issues because it makes me look bad in a safety huddle. The non-clinical staff was allowed to pass meds, schedule changes without notice. Additionally, the department was easily the most toxic I'd ever worked in, with various cliques at constant war with one another. I could go on and on. The troubles began one day when I opened my email to a message from Dorian which stated very curtly that I was being investigated for an incident that happened in the unit, that I was to meet with HR to discuss it, and for possible disciplinary action. I was not to discuss the incident with anyone. No date was given, no medical record number, no indication of what the issue could be. I replied that I would need the above information, would speak with my union rep, and meet at a time convenient for me. Dorian declined to give information, so I declined to meet with him. I began receiving emails almost daily, each more threatening than the last. I printed them all, contacted my sister, an employment attorney. Tried not to start shaking whenever I had to check my email. I was keenly aware that this is intimidation 101, but it is remarkably effective when you know that. Because I'm not a direct follower, I was soon discussing this in the break room, and before I knew it, it had been approached by 3 other women who had all received the same email on the same day. The comparison showed the emails being sent about a minute apart. We did not work the same shifts or the same days, and we agreed to call in the union rep and refused to meet with HR. Dorian continued to escalate, including cornering us in the hall, stepping in from chest to chest and trying to stare us down. He was a very big guy. Before long, we were speaking to more and more women, and it came to light that Dorian had a bit of targeting them with this exact email, followed by others that were more and more threatening until the person would finally meet with HR, get written up for something vague, and then be forced to sign a non-disclosure/no retaliation agreement. It seemed that he just simply picked the wrong 4 women this time because we weren't having any of it. I can't tell you how much time at work I began to spend with people crying while recounting their stories. None had thought of calling in the union rep. They did not even know their Weingarten rights. So we began a plot. We had limited time, and our company has a long and unglamorous history of protecting people just like this. Before long, the entire team was united against the common enemy. LGBTQ staff wrote up statements, backed by witnesses, of grossly homophobic comments, often in the presence of patients. Staff who were immigrants made statements about racial slurs. A staff member who was incredibly petty and vindictive had been compiling a dossier on every perceived policy violation and wrongdoing on Dorian's part since his hiring date, and he prepped it for presentation to HR. The graveyard shift, all huge men, said, "Obviously, Dorian isn't trying to flex on us, but we want to help." So they spent a couple of nights cruising Dorian's social media posts and capturing screenshots of homo, trans, xenophobic, and misogynistic content. Worried that they hadn't done enough, the night staff even paid for a cheap background check, and wow, what a score. DUI, failure to appear, hit and run, domestic violence, assault with a deadly weapon. Did the company not do a background check? The hell? Finally, 2 women came forward with complaints of harassment. One incident had even occurred in the presence of the assistant manager, and one was documented in an email. We were ready. We flooded HR with meeting requests, and our union rep coordinated the assault so that on Monday we met for simple harassment and intimidation. I met first, and HR seemed unimpressed by my complaint. Tuesday, all LGBTQ and staff subjected to racial slurs made their formal complaints. They said that the HR lady looked tired. Wednesday started with a background check, moved into the minutiae of policy violation, culminated with well-documented quid pro quo harassment. The union rep informed HR that the union's attorney was eager to know how to proceed. HR assured her that would not be necessary. That evening, Dorian posted a sign on his office door saying he would be away for a few days and to contact Kip or Dr. Steve if we needed anything. The graveyard shift reported that over the weekend, housekeeping came and removed everything from his office except his name tag, which the night staff took as a trophy. On Monday, at shift change, the chief nursing officer, chief operating officer, and HR met with the team and informed us that, effective immediately, Dorian was no longer employed by the hospital. We all sat silently and politely until they exited the unit when a loud and spontaneous cheer went up. People were hugging each other and cry laughing, high fives all around. The aftermath. To the best of my knowledge, Dorian never worked as a registered nurse again. And frankly, I don't care. Kip was fired 3 days later for having been aware of all that was going on and turning a blind eye because apparently he'd been touching women on the unit for a couple of years. I hadn't been aware of that, but it came out in the HR meetings. Dr. Steve was also fired for harassment. The unit hired an old manager of mine who had a long and well-documented history of, you guessed it, harassment. I quit within days of him being offered the job. The department's foray into getting along crumbled. Most of the staff have moved on to other jobs where they seem much happier. So, what do I consider the greatest accomplishment of my career? I sat up straight and smiled and said, when I answered that question, I took a very fractured team and brought them together to achieve a common goal. I like to think I'm really good at team building.